Mimi, greater than 23 years old, just finished another boring shift, drained and running on autopilot completely. My headphones blasting random playlists, eyes glued to memes, brain numb from the day's emptiness. The bus rattled down familiar streets, crowded with people who all looked half asleep. I told myself tonight would be nothing special, just another repeat of every other night. Then something shifted in the air, a tension heavy enough to snap me awake. A girl sat a few seats ahead, clutching a bag of textbooks like a shield. I recognized her from this route before, quiet, tired, but always keeping to herself. The next stop opened its doors, and a man stumbled in reeking of alcohol. He dropped into the seat beside her, leaning far too close, his eyes sharp and ugly. She shrank against the window, scanning the bus quickly, silently begging for someone to notice. Everyone kept staring at their phones, pretending nothing was happening, trapped in NPC mode. I felt my chest tighten, that pit of stomach dread screaming at me to do something. Before I could overthink, I stood and dropped into the seat right beside her. "There you are," I said loudly, forcing a smile. "I saved this spot for you." She blinked once, then caught on instantly, nodding and smiling like we'd known each other forever. The drunk guy grumbled angrily, muttered something incoherent, and stumbled off at the next stop. The silence afterward felt louder than the noise, like the bus exhaled all at once. Her shoulders dropped slightly, tension leaving her body as she turned her face toward me. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thin but steady. I didn't know what to do. I just nodded, pretending it was casual, but my pulse was still racing from the rush. In that moment, the whole evening split into two timelines, before and after, and I kept asking myself quietly, what would anyone else have done in my place? I thought it was over once I stepped off that crowded bus into the night. But later at home, the silence nagged me until I opened my laptop and started typing. I posted on a random forum, "What do you do if you save someone on the bus?" It wasn't serious, just half asking, half venting, hoping strangers would throw out quick advice. I hit submit, shut the lid, convinced it would sink into the endless internet void. But when I checked again an hour later, notifications poured in like wildfire across the screen. People dissected every detail, asking for the route, the time, even blurry photos appeared online. Someone mapped out the bus stops, another dug into police reports, others started spreadsheets. In less than 2 days, a swarm of anonymous users turned into a full-blown investigation team. They tracked sightings, compared descriptions, matched timelines. It looked like something out of a crime show. I sat staring at my screen, wondering how one dumb post had exploded this way. And the question in my head grew louder. Had I just started something uncontrollable? Then the news broke. Headlines plastered across local sites. Group of men arrested for harassment on buses. I clicked the link, my hands shaking as familiar blurred faces stared back through grainy mugshots. The same drunk man I'd seen climbing into that bus seat was suddenly on my screen. I couldn't breathe for a second, caught between pride and a strange, uncomfortable fear of consequence. Comment sections hailed anonymous heroes, strangers celebrated, and the story spread across more and more platforms. My inbox flooded with messages from people wanting to thank whoever had tipped the first domino. And all I had done was stand up once, and then type a careless forum post. Now it felt like I'd triggered an avalanche, and there was no stopping it anymore. Was I proud? Yes, but fear clawed just as sharp. Had I set something dangerous loose? Every ping of my phone made my chest tighten, waiting for something I couldn't name. I realized the story wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to the swarm, to the machine. And once it started, nothing I did could ever pull it back under control. The longer I stared at the screen, the heavier the guilt pressed inside my chest. People celebrated like it was some victory, but I couldn't stop wondering if I'd crossed a line. What if posting online hadn't helped, but made things worse, or even ruined someone innocent? I couldn't shake the thought that maybe I hadn't saved anyone. I'd just created chaos. Scrolling through the comments, I saw strangers debating my morality like I was a faceless experiment. Half the voices praised me, the other half whispered warnings that I had gone too far. "The internet isn't your friend," one reply said bluntly. "It eats people and spits them out." I slammed my laptop shut, but the weight of their words kept echoing in my head. For the first time, I wondered if stepping in on that bus had been easier. Online was different, messier, sharper, a storm that didn't listen or care what I wanted. I told myself to let it go, to just disappear from the thread, fade out completely. But then, late that night, a new notification appeared, a message waiting just for me. I clicked it with shaking hands, expecting another stranger, another lecture, another nameless opinion. But the message was short, almost too simple. Was that you in the bus last night? My chest tightened as if someone had reached through the screen and grabbed me directly. I typed back quickly, "Who is this?" But the reply came before I could breathe. "I think you saved me." It read, and suddenly the room around me went silent. Her words made my pulse race, louder than any comment or news headline ever could. I sat frozen, rereading them, as if the letters might rearrange themselves into something else. She had found me. Through all the noise, through the storm, her voice cut straight to me. The image of her clutching that bag of books replayed in my head instantly. It wasn't just random anymore. This was her, reaching back into my world again. I hovered over the keyboard, unsure what to say, afraid to break the fragile thread. All I knew was that nothing about this felt like coincidence anymore. It felt like fate. The next day, I took the same bus again, heart pounding heavier than usual with expectation. I told myself it was just routine, but deep down I hoped she'd appear once more. When the doors opened, she stepped in, her arms wrapped around that same bag of books. She noticed me almost immediately, hesitated for a second, then walked over and sat beside me. For a moment we didn't speak, the hum of the engine filling the fragile silence. Then she pulled out her phone, opened a news article, and slid it toward me. The headline showed the arrests again, bold and unmissable, faces blurred but still recognizable. Her eyes glowed as she looked at me, and her voice was soft but steady. "Was this you? Be honest," she asked, her expression a mixture of fear and hope. I exhaled slowly, my voice shaking. "I just made a post. I didn't plan this." She studied me in silence for a long moment. Then a smile broke across her face. "You didn't just save me," she said. "You saved so many others too." That smile hit harder than the headlines, harder than the internet's endless storm of noise. For the first time since posting, I felt something warm instead of just guilt or fear. She leaned back slightly, her hand brushing against mine on the worn plastic seat. My pulse spiked, but I didn't move away, letting her fingers linger against mine quietly. We rode in silence, but it wasn't empty. It was heavy, electric, carrying more than words could. Her presence made the crowded bus feel different, like a bubble shielding us from the world. When the bus reached her stop, she stood, glanced back at me, and mouthed, "Thank you." I watched her step off, the doors closing between us, leaving me staring after her. That night, I couldn't focus on anything. Her voice, her smile, they looped endlessly in my head. I realized I wanted to see her again, not just by accident, but on purpose. The internet had turned my life upside down, but she grounded me in something real. And somehow, I knew this wasn't the last time our paths would cross. A week later, I found myself back on the same route, nerves buzzing under my skin. The bus smelled of rain and metal, people packed close, but all I searched for was her. Then I saw her again, climbing aboard with the same tired grace, her bag clutched tightly. She noticed me instantly this time, her lips curving into a smile that melted my chest. She slid into the seat beside me, her shoulder brushing mine, warmth seeping through layers. For a while we rode in silence, the noise of strangers fading into a distant hum. Finally she leaned toward me, holding up her phone with another headline glowing across it. "You know this was you, right?" she asked softly, eyes burning with quiet certainty. I swallowed hard, staring at the screen, then whispered back, "I just wrote something small." Her hand brushed mine lightly, steadying me, her voice firm. "Sometimes small things change everything." My chest tightened at her words, because deep down I already knew she was right. And sitting next to her, I realized this story had never belonged to me alone. We met again outside the bus, a coffee shop glowing warm on University Avenue. The rain had eased, puddles shining with neon reflections, as she waved me inside casually. We sat across from each other, steam rising between us, our conversation flowing endlessly. She laughed when I told her about the forum chaos, calling me an accidental hero. I rolled my eyes, pretending to be annoyed, but inside her words lit me on fire. Her smile stretched across the table, her eyes catching mine like she could see through walls. Hours passed unnoticed, cups emptied, yet neither of us wanted to leave that table. When she finally stood, she said, "See you soon." And it felt like a promise. I walked home that night with my heart lighter, the city lights softer, the air clearer. The internet storm still raged, but for once it didn't scare me anymore. Because something real was growing between us, fragile but undeniable, rooted in that one bus ride. And maybe fate wasn't about luck at all. It was about showing up in the moment. The days blurred together, but my mind kept circling back to her smile on that bus. I caught myself replaying her laugh from the cafe, softer than the chaos of the internet. At night, scrolling through headlines and threads, none of it mattered as much as her. My inbox still filled with strangers, theories, endless noise, but I ignored it more each day. Instead, I found myself waiting at the stop, hoping the doors would open to her face. Every time she appeared, something inside me loosened, a weight I didn't realize I carried. She made the crowded space feel bearable, like the noise and stares couldn't reach us anymore. One evening, she leaned close on the ride, whispering, "Funny how everything changed so fast." I nodded, unable to find words, because she was right. Everything had turned upside down. From a single-seat choice on a bus, the entire course of my life shifted. And I wasn't sure whether to call it luck, fate, or just reckless timing. But every time she smiled, it felt worth it, no matter what the world said. We met again for coffee, this time at a smaller cafe tucked on a side street. The place smelled of cinnamon and rain, quiet enough that our words felt louder somehow. She talked about her classes, her deadlines, the stress piling on, but she still smiled. I listened more than I spoke, soaking in her voice, the rhythm steady and grounding. When she caught me staring, she laughed, shaking her head. "Don't look at me like that." I pretended to shrug, but my heart raced, because I couldn't hide it anymore. Every gesture she made felt like gravity, pulling me closer without force, without resistance. She reached across the table suddenly, her fingers brushing mine, not letting go this time. The silence between us thickened, but it wasn't awkward. It was electric, alive, undeniable. Outside, the world rushed by with honking horns and flashing lights, but we sat still. Two people caught in the ripple of something bigger, pretending coffee explained the reason we met. And deep down, I knew this was the real story hidden beneath all the noise. By the third week, the bus no longer felt like routine, it felt like expectation. Every ride carried the chance of her presence, and my chest tightened until I saw her. When she appeared, everything eased instantly, like the noise of the city dimmed on command. We talked more now, sharing little things, memes, playlists, inside jokes built in moving silence. She teased me for zoning out, called me hero, with a smirk that melted my defenses. I deflected with sarcasm, but inside, hearing it from her never stopped shaking me. Other passengers faded into background noise, just bodies in motion, while she remained crystal clear. One evening she asked, "Do you regret it? Starting all of this online?" I hesitated, staring out the window before answering honestly. "Sometimes, but not when I see you." Her smile lingered on me, softer this time, not playful, but carrying something deeper, unspoken. The bus rattled on, lights flickering, but all I noticed was the warmth in her eyes. For the first time, I thought maybe accidents weren't accidents. They were invitations we never saw coming. A week later we met at the University Avenue Cafe again, rain tapping against the glass. She wore her hair loose, damp from the weather, her textbooks piled beside her seat. We talked for hours, slipping between serious topics and jokes, weaving a rhythm of our own. She told me she hated the headlines, hated how stories twisted people into nameless symbols. I nodded, because I understood. The internet turned moments into monsters, chewing up context entirely. But, she said, leaning in, without it, I'd probably still be scared, maybe worse. Her hand found mine under the table, quiet but certain, her thumb brushing slow circles. I froze for a second, then let it happen, feeling the electricity hum through my chest. "You didn't just save me on that bus," she whispered. "You saved me afterward too." The cafe grew quieter around us, the world shrinking to her voice, her touch, her smile. I wanted to tell her she had saved me too, but the words stuck. Instead, I just held her hand tighter, letting silence speak louder than anything I could say. By then, the chaos online felt far away, replaced with something fragile and real between us. The forum threads still buzzed, theories spun endlessly, but none of them mattered when she was near. One night on the bus, she leaned against me, her shoulder warm, her voice barely above a whisper. "Funny how one moment changes everything," she said, her breath soft but heavy with meaning. I nodded, remembering the fear in her eyes that first night and the strength now. Every ride, every coffee, every smile stitched together something I didn't know I was missing. The city outside blurred past windows, endless lights, endless stories, but ours kept growing quietly. I realized then it wasn't about being a hero or an accidental symbol online. It was about showing up, taking one step, refusing to stay silent when silence felt easier. She shifted closer, her head against my chest, and I knew I wouldn't drift again. The memory of that crowded bus, that choice, would always anchor me to this moment. And maybe fate was nothing more than choosing to act when no one else would. I didn't want attention, I didn't crave headlines, but I couldn't deny what it gave me. Sometimes one post, one careless thought tossed online, becomes the match that lights something enormous. But sometimes, that same post threads lives together, creates connections no algorithm could ever design. Sitting with her now, fingers intertwined, I saw clearly what mattered beyond the noise. It wasn't the forum or the news. It was the warmth of her hand in mine. "You changed everything," she said softly, smiling in that way that froze my chest still. I laughed nervously, shaking my head. "No, I just stood up on a bus." Her smile widened, eyes glowing. "Sometimes that's all it takes. Just one step, one choice." The bus hummed beneath us, the night pressing against the windows, but inside it felt weightless. And I knew then that even if the world forgot the headlines, this would remain. One crowded bus, one small decision, and two lives rerouted forever because of it. If you believe small choices matter, hit like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe.